The guilt, it never ends. People like me, the guys that can't be in reserve duty right now, that they feel guilty about not being in reserve duty. The guys in Gaza feel guilty about not being active October 7th. Guilt and shame in and of themselves, just feeling it without doing something about it, it's not helpful. It's just a cycle that keeps going. Welcome to the final podcast of 2024. Today, what we're going to be covering is the top 10 of 2024, a debrief. I'm going to be sharing my three main lessons, the three things I'm excited about for 2025, one fitness hack that I found that is very simple but very impactful, and I'm going to be leaving you with three questions to help you achieve more in 2025. So first off, we're going to get started with the three main lessons. So for me, this year was a challenging one. There was obviously everything going on back home, but there was also my ability to deal with it. This year was very challenging as far as the fact that it shook up my identity a lot. That there was a war going on back home, and as someone who's an ex-special ops person and also builds the brand about it and talks about it a lot, I wasn't able to contribute in the way that I'm used to contributing. I was no longer eligible for reserve duty because of age and because of inactivity, and it was a very, very difficult thing to wrap my head around. That this was going on, and yet for whatever reason, I wasn't able to do what I thought I was supposed to be doing. And it was very hard, and I felt a lot of guilt and a lot of shame around it. And the lesson that I want to share is, first off, that guilt and shame are just very unhelpful. They don't do anything positive. They don't drive action, unless they can, but guilt and shame in and of themselves, just feeling it without doing something about it, it's not helpful. And I think it's about having it as kind of a razor of, is this driving some sort of positive action? Okay, if not, then it's time to let it go, because it doesn't help you, and it definitely doesn't help everyone else. And I think there's a kind of human pattern where sometimes we feel that other people are suffering, so the way we can help them is by showing that we're hurting too. And while that may help, it doesn't really do much. It doesn't have a lot of impact. It just causes everybody to get down instead of thinking positive. For me, the biggest thing that helped me turn the corner on this was actually a conversation with my mentor. So I was in Israel in July, and I got to speak with him. My mentor is the former Mossad's head of psychology, and he's now also the person who's in charge of the whole hostage situation in Israel as far as the psychological aspect. So when hostages get taken back, whether through deals or whether through operations, he's their first point of contact to help them debrief both psychologically and to gather information. So he has a wealth of information around it. And me and him had a very deep and insightful chat over at his place. And the main thing he told me was that the guilt, it never ends. And I think I'm going to be speaking again a concept of what's going on in Israel right now, but it's true for everybody. It's part of the human condition that there's always levels to more guilt. So he was saying that people like me, the guys that can't be in reserve duty right now, that feel like they're fighters, they feel guilty about not being in reserve duty. The guys that are in reserve duty but not inactive right now in Gaza or in the north, they feel guilty about that. The guys that are active right now feel guilty about not being active October 7th. The guys that were actually fighting in firefights in October 7th, they feel guilty that they were only in 2 firefights instead of 3. The guys that were in 8 firefights feel guilty that they weren't in 9. And the guys that were in 9 firefights feel guilty that they only got shot in the leg while their friend got shot in the chest. And how there's just this never-ending cycle of guilt and shame, and that it's just a cycle that keeps going. Now, the reason that was so interesting for me is that a lot of times we feel guilt or shame. We think there's a valid reason for this. Because I'm not doing X, therefore I should feel Y. And when you hear these kind of stories that are not logical, that if you just got shot in the leg, you should feel guilty that you're getting shot in the chest, it all of a sudden brings something to light, that maybe this isn't a logical thing. It's just a feeling that we all have. It's not that you have a specific issue that it's valid for you to feel guilty around, but it's just the issue that we as humans, we feel guilt and we feel shame sometimes around certain things. And for whatever reason, for me, understanding it from that perspective, that, you know what, I would have felt guilt and shame around this no matter what, unless I had basically been shot in the chest as well. It allowed me to release a lot of that. And it was a big lesson for me, because I recognize that this is one of those things, and I think for me it was the first time really dealing with feelings of guilt and shame in my life at that level. That is also something that doesn't help, and that was the way for me to let go of it, in a way, to recognize that it's not my issue. There's not a specific valid reason I should feel guilty or shame, but It's just how everybody feels. And therefore, it probably means that I'm not doing something wrong. It's just part of the reality. So we can move past it. So that was lesson number one, that guilt and shame aren't helpful. And a lot of times a way to get over them is just understanding if you're actually doing something wrong or if it's just part of the human condition. That, so to speak, it's not your issue, not your specific problem, but it's just the issue. We all go through it. And therefore, maybe you can let yourself slide, that you're not doing something wrong here. So that was lesson number one. Now, with that, this year felt like a winter in a lot of ways. With everything going on back home, we also had a lot of JV partners in the business decide not to work with us because of that. They just didn't want to touch anything that could be mildly considered political, even if we didn't talk about politics, just the fact that I'm enjoying the brand. And while that is a reality that I accepted when I took on this brand, it is also pinched. There's no way around it. And what was weird is that we had the biggest year in the business. We crushed a lot of records. We had 6-figure one-on-one clients coming in, which was a dream when I just started this business. The book project is rolling really well. We really upgraded the arena and got amazing client results. In the past in-person event for Arena alumni, which is something we host for free for people that have graduated the program, we had 40 people come in from all over the world and attend the event. Just lots of big wins all around, from even going to conferences and, to my surprise, having speakers put my picture up on their slides saying that I really helped them. We had a lot of really good things happen that when you look from the outside in, you're like, whoa, those are really big wins. They must have been really excited. And the reality is they didn't. And I think that's a part of life, that sometimes you're going to have these winter seasons that happen for a variety of reasons to you in your personal life, and things that should feel good don't. But the reality is you can still have certain ways of approaching this. And I think this is lesson number 2, that you can still show up regardless of how it feels. There are 2 ways I look at it to deal with winter times. One, you can give yourself the space to heal and claim that you're burnt out and just completely let it go and say, okay, I don't have to do any of this. I'm off the hook, so to speak, because I feel a certain way. That's option 1. And option 2 is to take breaks as you need to recover, but keep chipping away and showing up regardless of the emotions, regardless of how you feel. Now, the reason I choose number 2 is that I strongly believe that the feelings will eventually subside, but you'll have the situation that you either did or didn't put in the work to create regardless. You're going to wake up at a certain point when those feelings aren't there, and you're going to have a certain reality in your life. And if you showed up, so to speak, just like carried water, chopped wood, so to speak, you can get a lot done. And that was something that I kept in my head a lot of times this year. When things didn't feel great, I was like, I'm just going to put my head down and I'm going to keep doing the work. And when this subsides, I'm going to have a great result. And I can at least be very happy about that. And I can feel a sense of accomplishment. And the reality is that this year, despite it being so tough, we're heading to 2025 in much better shape than we're heading to 2024. And regardless of that past year not feeling good, I feel really good about that. And it gives me a sense of accomplishment and a sense of fulfillment, and also a sense of pride that I was able to push through and just keep an effective mindset of not always thinking, how do I feel, but just saying what needs to get done. How can I get it done? And if I need to, when do I need to take a break to honestly decompress, recharge, and then get going back in? Because it's been a challenging one. So I think that's lesson number 2, that when you're faced with a season, when things are hard, when things don't feel good, you have 2 options. You can either just decide, you know what, I'm having a hard time, put your hands up, or you can still show up while also taking breaks to decompress and recharge. And I think if you choose number 2, you'll be much happier with the outcome that you create for yourself in the long run. So that's lesson number 2. You can always show up, just take the breaks and make sure you decompress and recharge so you can get things done. So the third lesson that's added into that is one that I learned during one of those breaks, that for me, I kind of I fell out of love with jiu-jitsu at a certain point. Too many skin infections, too many injuries, a lot of things that come with it. And I was looking for something new. And in one of those breaks, we were in Hawaii, and I just found surfing. And it was an amazing, amazing thing for me. And I think finding something that's physical, that's both physically challenging, it gets you going, is outdoors, is mentally challenging, learning a new skill, and has a social element in it. If that's something you can find, and especially if it's something you can do long term and it doesn't mess up your body, it's such an amazing asset for performance. A big part of performance is just being able to stay level-headed, Now, while there's amazing tools to make sure that your emotions are in check, that you stay calm, one of the biggest ones is to actually be physically active and preemptively get a lot of that energy out of you. One of my big lessons for this year was to honestly say, unless I've surfed in the past couple of days, don't believe anything is true. Because it's amazing what having just a long, challenging session out in the sun, what it can do as far as your mental clarity and just getting a lot of emotional debris out of your way. And I think a lot of people, they look at elite performance and they think about all these people that are elite performers and they're in really good shape. And they say to themselves, oh, this is just one more thing they have to do in order to get into great performance. Oh man, now I have to start a workout routine. Now I have to start this. Now I have to do that. And it's actually the opposite. If you don't have some kind of physical routine, you're actually playing life on hard mode. And I think it's a big thing to understand that unless you're constantly working out, you're just making life more difficult on yourself. Now, if you can find a way that's really enjoyable for you, such as surfing, such as jiu-jitsu, such as a group class of any kinds of sort, whatever it may be, that's actually going to be a giant leg up for your performance. It's not going to be another thing that you have to do, another burden for elite performance. It's actually the opposite. Like the people who don't work out and are still achieving a lot, my hat's off to them because they're playing life on hard mode. So those are my three main lessons. One, that guilt and shame aren't helpful. And sometimes recognizing that it's not your problem, but it's just the problem. It's part of the human condition, relieves a lot of the guilt and shame. Two, is that you can still show up regardless if things feel hard. Just take breaks to decompress and recharge. And if you do that and show up and, so to speak, carry water, chop wood, just do your thing, put your head down, you'll be happy with the result you have at the end of that season. And three, that surfing is amazing. That if you can find some kind of outlet like that for your energy to get yourself going every day, it can do a lot, not just for your mental state and your well-being, but tactically for your performance, for your ability to stay calm and make better decisions under pressure. Those are the three lessons. Now, to the three things I'm excited about. The first big one is the book that's going to be coming out. It's legitimately great. I'm very excited about it. And I generally think that it's something that's going to help push the whole conversation of what elite performance is really about and how to avoid the main pitfalls of it forward. And it's going to make a sizable imprint on this whole field. Let's call it of performance, mindset, whatever it may be. And a main theme we're going to be talking about is how fear can create a sense of pressure in us, because we have these primal fears that we think that everything is a primal threat to our existence, and how that makes us feel a certain sense of pressure. And that when we feel a certain sense of pressure, we actually start underperforming. That pressure isn't just this pressure makes diamonds nonsense, but that there's actually a bell curve. When too much pressure becomes something that actually hurts our performance, and how that pressure manifests in three main ways. And various entrepreneurs and achievers that have really helped these past couple of years, and how to conquer that fear so you can win big. So as a little snippet, I do actually want to share little bits and pieces of the three ways I've seen it really manifest in most of the entrepreneurs, the poker players, the hedge fund managers, all the people that I've helped. So there are three main ways. There's two main, it's called three main archetypes of the people. There's the go harder guy who responds to pressure by just wanting to go harder. There's the people-pleasing guy who responds to any pressure by just wanting to kind of diffuse the situation, make sure everyone's happy. And then there's a person that whenever they feel a sense of pressure, they feel like they have to prove something. So let's break these down. And this is kind of a preview of what we have going on in the book. So the go harder guy. The go harder guy is all gas, no brakes. Every time there's tension or discomfort, his only solution is to push harder. People around him call him things like intense, but he doesn't see himself that way. He thinks he's only slightly above average, despite working relentlessly with tireless focus. As a result, he burns out himself and his employees by pushing at an unsustainable pace, all while thinking, this is easy, this is not an issue. His body usually pays the price too. Injuries pile up from going too hard in sports without ever slowing down. Now, you got to think of it like a race car. Yes, you need power. That's your drive and your work ethic. But you also need precision and control. Flooring the gas pedal through every turn isn't just inefficient, it's dangerous, and eventually something breaks. Performing at your best isn't about constant maximum effort. It's about applying the right force at the right time. The go harder's fatal flaw isn't lack of capability. It's the belief that constant maximum effort is the only path to success. So when pressure builds, they default to excitement and force instead of calm, strategic thinking. Ironically, they end up achieving less by trying to do more. They burn out their teams, they burn out their relationships, and they injure their bodies. Now, the solution isn't working more. It's working smarter. It's understanding that thinking time isn't wasted time, and recovery isn't about weakness, but about strategy. It's knowing that your drive is a tool to be wielded precisely, not a weapon to be fired constantly. Now, if you're one of these go harder guys, very much like I was when I was younger, you're probably thinking, Itamar, going hard is what got me here. If I ease up even slightly, everything I've built will collapse. So I want to be clear. You're partly right. The ability to outwork others, to push when others quit, is valuable. It might have been the superpower that got you this far, but there's a crucial difference between working hard and pressuring yourself needlessly. Working hard is a choice, it's a strategy. Constant internal pressure is a fear response from the thought of everything will collapse if I don't keep pushing. And it creates a ton of internal pressure, and that pressure leads you to push yourself and others past the point of effectiveness. You end up working harder instead of working smarter, burning out both yourself and your team in the process. You end up forcing everything when easing off would actually get you there faster sometimes in a more strategic route. So basically, as far as the go harder guy, when it comes to results, working hard in strategic bursts is better than constantly pushing through exhaustion. That's the go harder guy. Then we got the people pleasing guy. The people pleasing guy is all accommodations, no boundaries. Every time there's tension or discomfort, his only solution is to ease off and accommodate. People say he's so generous or so helpful, and he doesn't see how it's hurting him. He thinks he's just building relationships despite chronically undercharging and over-delivering. As a result, he drains himself by trying to please everyone at an unsustainable pace while thinking, oh, once they see the value, I can ask for more. His business usually pays a price as well. Profits stay low from keeping underperforming employees around because, quote unquote, they're like family, and seeking permission to do things he should just execute on. Think of it like being a negotiator. Yes, you need to build rapport. That's your relationship skill. But you also need to stand your ground. Always giving in isn't just inefficient, it's unsustainable. And eventually something breaks. Constant people-pleasing isn't the path to optimal results. Balancing care with boundaries is. The people-pleasing guy's fatal flaw isn't lack of capability either. It's the belief that being liked is more important than being effective. So when pressure builds, they default to avoiding conflict instead of having necessary conversations. And ironically, they end up helping fewer people by playing small. They drain their energy, they undercharge their worth, and they keep the wrong people around. Now, if you're a people-pleasing guy, you might be thinking, Itamar, building relationships is what got me here. If I start setting those hard boundaries, I'm concerned that everything might collapse. And let me be clear, you're partly right. The ability to connect with people and deliver above and beyond is very valuable. It might have been the superpower that got you this far. But there's a crucial difference between being helpful and being a people pleaser. Being helpful is a choice, it's a strategy. Constant people pleasing comes from a fear response of, what will people think of me, or will they not like me, or will they not approve of me if I don't do this? And that fear creates a ton of internal pressure that leads you to sacrifice yourself and your success trying to please everyone. You end up helping less by trying to help more, draining both yourself and your potential in the process. You end up playing smaller when standing firm would actually earn you more respect and get you better results. So when it comes to people pleasing and results, basically helping others while helping yourself is more important than being liked. And finally, we have the something to prove guy. The something to prove guy filters everything through the lens of proving his worth. So while he's incredibly talented, he makes choices based on what will demonstrate his capabilities rather than what will actually work best. He builds elaborate systems when simple ones would do. He takes the hardest path to every goal and prioritizes vanity metrics over results and exhausts himself trying to prove points that don't need proving. He often thinks to himself, this will prove how capable I am. And his results usually pay the price too. Progress stalls for optimizing for things that will feed his ego instead of get him actual results. Something to prove, guys, fatal flaw isn't lack of ability. These are often the most talented people in the room. But the problem is focus. They make everything harder than necessary just to prove a point. And when pressure builds, that chip on their shoulder kicks in, and they overcomplicate things just to demonstrate their capabilities. So if you're something to prove guy, you might be thinking, but that chip on my shoulder is what drives me. It's my fuel. Without it, I might lose my aggression, my tenacity, and my drive. It's my edge. So I want to be clear about that as well. You're partly right here. Having something to prove can be rocket fuel when you need it. That burning desire to show people that they underestimate you, it's powerful, and it can launch you out of some very dark places. But there's a trap there. That rocket fuel can also send you in the wrong direction. When, unless I can do X, they were right, becomes your compass about how to think about decisions, you stop making strategic ones and start making emotional ones. So the solution isn't to lose your drive. It's about to direct it strategically. It's understanding that taking the simple path isn't weakness, it's wisdom. That effectiveness trumps complexity, that your determination is a tool to be aimed precisely, not a burden forcing you to take the hardest path. The real power comes when you can say, I'm not doing this to prove anyone wrong or anything to anyone, but I'm simply doing this because this is what works best. That's when you stop being reactive and start being strategic. So when it comes to results, for the something to prove guy, all the people out there with a chip on the shoulder, the reality is that once you've gotten out of the dark place you were at, having just average drive with elite focus will actually get you better results than having a strong drive with the wrong focus. While it might be very impressive to be running twice as fast in the wrong direction, it doesn't actually get you anywhere. So that's a little snippet of the book, a little preview. I'm very excited about it. Again, I just haven't seen anything out there as practical. Say, this is what's going on. This is the concept of why this is happening to you, why you're not performing at your best. And on top of that, here's the exact way to fix that with everything included, nothing held back. So I'm very excited about that. That's number one. The first thing I'm excited about is the book coming out and just the imprint I'm thinking it's going to have on the whole industry as far as elite performance. That's number one. Number two, as a part of that, we are moving to the States. We're going to move to Austin, Texas next year. And I'm very excited about that. And it came from a simple kind of framework that I used, that when I wanted to get really good in jiu-jitsu, I moved to Rio de Janeiro in Brazil. And I went to the best gym I could find and just surrounded myself with black belts. And it was pretty much inevitable that by me surrounding myself with black belts that are world champions or at least in a world-class level, that I would become one as well. And that's what happened. And it's the same thing with Austin. When I look at people building my kinds of businesses, trying to do the things that I'm trying to do as far as influence the narrative of what works or what doesn't work in a specific field, it seems like that's the epicenter right there. And I'm very excited just to go to Austin, play a big game, put myself in the right position to win. That I feel like once we make the move to go there, get all the visas in sort and kind of fight that uphill battle to get there, from there, it's going to be more of a downhill battle. And I'm very excited about that. And finally, the third thing I'm very excited about is to actually lean in and play the game. So I had a conversation with two friends of mine a couple months back, and they were basically telling me, Itamar, you need to start playing the game more. I know you want to do things in a certain way, but you just need to get over it, and you need to lean into your background. You need to lean into what's working for other people and do that as well, and stop trying to avoid it. And it was a good wake-up call, and I very much appreciated that, and I'm very much looking forward to playing the game. The title of the book is probably going to be Military-Grade Mindset. It's nothing going to be about anything about performance that I want or how to solve it, but just what do people want? What is working in the industry? What is working in the world? What is working for other people? Just do that as well. And I'm very excited about to lean into that. Calling the book Military Grade Mindset, leaning into it with a lot of the concepts of how to conquer your mind and using a more, let's call it special forces vernacular to clear up everything and just to go for it, to really like not hold anything back, not feel any discomfort about using this term or that term because it's cheesy, but to just go for it, go all in. What works is what works, and to just do it. So those are the three things that I'm excited about. One, the book and what I share there about the 3 archetypes. 2 is moving to the States and just going to a place where you're surrounding yourself with black belts. And 3, just playing the game and really going for it and going for big things. Now, moving on to the one little fitness hack that I found. So in the arena, I've had several people that are health coaches or with health coaching businesses come through. And basically the one thing that I've picked up from all of them is to say that nobody gets enough protein. And this year, despite me doing a lot more cardiovascular activity like surfing, like running, like hiking, I've actually put on about 4 kilos of lean mass. So about 10 pounds of lean muscle mass without doing anything different as far as my my strength and conditioning routines, by simply adding 60 grams of protein to my diet. And what I do is very simple. When I wake up, one of the first things I do is I go to the fridge, I get the protein out, and I just have 2 scoops of protein powder in a shake, and that's it. And despite doing a lot of things that are catabolic, like all of the surfing, the endurance things that I do, I've actually put on more mass without having to change anything. So as a little fitness hack, if you're not getting enough protein, and you probably aren't when you actually look into things and look into your diet, just adding 2 scoops of protein first thing when you wake up, it can make a massive difference. It has for me. So finally, to the 3 questions I want to leave you with to really crush 2025. First off is, what kind of physical routine do you have in place to help you modulate stress? Because the reality is, if you don't have one, you're fighting an uphill battle. So to really think about that, because if you can set that in place, it can go a really long way into you not having to deal with a lot of things and a lot of emotions, because you're just going to preemptively modulate them. It's like prehab for your mind. 2 is, where do you need to be playing the game more and leaning into what works for others? So are there any areas in your business that you perhaps don't feel comfortable with, or you perhaps feel a little self-conscious that you're avoiding when you see other people doing that and working really well for them? If that's something that's holding you back, you should probably get over it. And finally, number 3, what are you excited about in life or business? Because if you can't answer that very clearly, where you're trying to head toward and what's exciting about you, you can't expect yourself to perform at your best. You just have nothing to pull you forward. And everything is going to feel very bland and very meaningless, because there is no future meaning for it. You're just doing it for the sake of doing it, so to speak. But if you can have a vision of what's exciting you about the next year, the next couple of years, what you're excited about, what really makes you want to get up and do something, where are you heading towards, what's that next growth point of yours that you want to get to, go a long way in helping you overcome a lot of things. And that when even things don't feel good at the moment, you're having perhaps a bit of a winter, it can help you push through and just give you that mindset of, I will put my head down, I will do what's required, and I will come out better on the other side. And on that note, I wanted to wish everybody a great 2025, and perhaps also a challenging one as well. A buddy of mine from the Israeli Navy SEALs used to sign off all his emails to me as, I wish you things as sweet as salt. And it was an internal joke and a way for him to say, I wish you have hardships, because I know you're capable of dealing with them, and I hope you can use them to grow. And if nothing else, if this year was challenging for you guys, I hope you find it a way to grow from it and to succeed a lot in the future, and to also just recognize that you can be the kind of people that deal with things and still move forward. And that's the real superpower. That if you can say, I'm having a hard time, I'm having a challenging time, it's a winter time, whatever it may be, but that doesn't mean I need to stop. That doesn't mean I need to feel bad for myself about it, but I can just figure out a way to keep moving forward. That's real power. And with that comes a true sense of confidence that regardless of what's going on outside, inside, I know I can still push through. Aside from that, I wish you guys a big 2025. Dare to do big things and go crush it.